It's the aftermath, and we are minus AJ. AJ had some family stuff to take care of, and we're hoping everything's cool with him. But it is the aftermath. It is Monday night. It is Tuesday morning over here in the UK, and we are all about Bucs Talk. So if anyone wants to come on the show and have a chat, they're more than welcome to come on screen, have a chat with me, and get their feelings and how they're feeling. Did they like the Baker Mayfield? Did they have someone else in mind? That kind of thing. What are they thinking about the current Buccaneers news? So without further ado, guys, as I always say, remember to hit that like button, strip the subscribe button, sack that notification button, and you can intercept me in the comments. And I will also hopefully put out a link later on, a link as we go through, about you guys coming on screen and having a chat with me. So what's been happening? Well, we've had a Baker Mayfield press conference where he didn't wake up feeling dangerous. And we'll see if he does feel dangerous this season. But talking about how he feels that he can't replace Tom Brady. Well, of course he can't. That's always going to be how it is. It's Tom Brady. It's the GOAT. He's not going to. He got a little bit of flack for saying he's going to do what got him here. I think he said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he feels that what he's done has gotten to this point, and he's just going to continue to be him. And that's all well and good. But what he's done so far hasn't been that great since he's left the Browns. So it's going to be interesting. Which Baker Mayfield do we get? Do we get that 2020 Baker Mayfield that had that playoff win and had the really big playoff win? Or is he going to be a mixture of the two, and it's going to be like a roller coaster ride, very similar to a Jameis Winston? Or are we going to get complete and utter trash, and we have to go to Kyle Trask, and we finally get an opportunity to see what he looks like? What will the Buccaneers do now? So I personally think the Buccaneers will either bring back Blaine Gabbert, or I think they will bring in a vet minimum guy. So I'm thinking that will be either Blaine Gabbert. I do believe he was being courted about going somewhere else, but it could also be someone like Drew Lock, or who else is available to come and join the team. I do think the Buccaneers may draft somebody in the 6th round or later. Who that may be, I don't know. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to go after a Hendon Hooker, mainly because Hendon Hooker is slated to be a 2nd to 3rd round pick, and the Buccaneers just have too many holes on this Tampa Bay team right now. So, we have the acquisition of a few guys. We've got Jamal Dean's back, which is always great. Levante David is back, which is what we wanted. Those were our 2 marquee signings. Those guys were, I believe, in the top 10, potentially, maybe top 15 of the free agents that were available. The Buccaneers signed 2 of them. So that's always a good thing. They were our marquee signings. And then we get the addition of Greg Gaines, who is a nose tackle by trade. But they're not going to just leave him on the bench behind Vita Vea. They want to play him. So I think he'll go down in their four-man line sets. So when they should give a 4-3 look rather than a 3-4 look, which they do tend to do on occasion, or they'll put him at end. I looked at the size of this guy, and he's a behemoth of a human. But so was Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks is a big guy, but he could move, and he played defensive end. So we'll see where he goes. Jeff Olson it says would like the QB from Houston, Clayton Tune, as a late round pick. Absolutely. Well, why not have a look? I mean, there's a couple of guys in there. I think there's the guy from Purdue. He might slide a little bit. Obviously, there's Stetson Bennett, who is in a pro offense. He was in a Todd Monken offense. Maybe comes with a little bit of baggage, but when you're thinking of a 6th round pick, do you really care that he has a bit of baggage? 6th round picks don't always make the roster, guys. Some of them are on the practice squad for a while, and some of them don't even make active roster and just fizzle out. People talking about 6th round picks like they're going to impact the roster. They don't always do. A lot of them just fizzle out into the background. And I think that's all the way it is. We also re-signed Pat O'Connor, who does play defensive line. So the defensive line is starting to be built up. Cam Gill comes back as an edge rusher, same with Anthony Nelson, and we also acquire Aaron Stinney, and Chase Edmonds, the running back from Arizona, who I believe they'll probably use on third downs, very similar to how they use Giovanni Bernard. So that, you're looking at the running back room right now. You've got Rashad White, Keyshawn Vaughn, and this cat Chase Edmonds. I think they'll draft somebody, but I think it will be probably a fifth guy in the fifth round. I don't think they'll go too high unless there's somebody who just screams at them. Right now, what do the Buccaneers need? Well, they need a safety. We currently only have one safety on the roster. I do believe the Buccaneers will bide their time, because at the moment, and I've always said this, you put that guy on, you have that guy in your mind, and if he's not signed, every day he doesn't get signed, you've basically taken $100,000 off, $100K off his kind of asking salary. It was, let's say he's a $4 million guy. By the time he gets to draft day, he's a $2 million guy. So that kind of thing works into it. The more these players sit in free agency and don't get anything. Hey, Christopher, I hope you're doing well, brother. I'm loving the stuff that you've been putting up on is it Instagram or TikTok? Either way, I'm loving the stuff. And anytime I see it, I always give it a good like. But yeah, back to what we're talking about here. Buccaneers have some moves that they still need to make. So safety is definitely a hole. We definitely need a safety to complement Antoine Winfield. Now, I had a little look around the internet. I've seen what people are mock drafting. People are still mock drafting as wide receivers in like round 3 on occasion. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, it'll have to be someone who screams at you and like, oh my God, I can't believe that guy dropped. But I do think if it was me, if I'm drafting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going offensive tackle. And if the offensive tackle I don't want there, the best available offensive tackle, if he's there, then I'll take him. If he's not there, I'm looking at round 2 and I'm thinking, could I drop back a little bit? Could I drop back to about 25? Could I drop to about that 25 to 28 mark and still have a pick? Because this draft hasn't got a lot of elite talent. It's got a lot of depth to it, but it doesn't have a lot of elite talent in it. So if you drop back to about 28, 25, between 25 and 28, you're probably, I like 25 the most, because I think both Dallas and potentially the Saints will probably draft a lineman. So you kind of want to be in front of them realistically if you want to go and pick up an offensive lineman that's still there. If it was Anton Harrison, which is the one that I think, I'm hoping it's Broderick Jones. There's a guy from Northwestern, I believe, as well, but I think he's going to be way gone. But the Georgia tackle, I'm hoping is going to be there. I think there's an opportunity for him to be there. He has been mock draft by a few draft networks or draft analysis, draft pundits or draft analytics. They've been kind of punching around that name. Looks like where we'll end up going. A few people have got us going with Battle at safety and seeing how that goes. I want to go lineman first, mainly because I find there's less of a drop off from a safety from a late first round safety to a second round safety. I don't think there's a massive drop. I personally don't feel there's a massive drop off. Whereas I think there is a bigger drop off when it comes to linemen. So the Bucs have to do their due diligence here and really figure out who they want in that position. But for me, if Broderick Jones isn't there, and it looks like it's going to have to be Anton Harrison, I want to trade back to about the 25, maybe to the 28, but it has to be before the Saints pick and it has to be before Dallas picks, because I do think he will be gone by that time. I could be wrong, but we shall see. Trade back, hopefully he gets up a third round pick or something like that, maybe a late third and a late fourth or something like that. Buccaneers don't have a fourth round pick in this draft, so having one of those would be kind of nice to have just in the back in your back pocket. But Third round, you can get yourself another lineman. You can go and get that wide receiver. You could go and get a running back in the third round that can contribute almost immediately, just like a Ronald Jones, like Ronald Jones did. I don't think he was a third. I think he was a second. But players like Keyshawn Vaughn and what have you, you can go get somebody who's going to impact the squad immediately. OT that could play both left and right tackle, depending on where Worst plays. I think you've got to go for a left tackle. Right? You've got to go for a left tackle because you don't want to be left with two right tackles. Finding a tackle that can play both would probably mean he's going to be sought after even more than just a left tackle or just a right tackle. If someone can play both sides solidly, really well in college, they're probably not going to last a long time. So I don't see someone falling like that, but hey, I could be wrong. Yes, I think they'll put. I do believe that they'll put Worst wherever they think he will succeed. And put it this way: if you can get yourself a left tackle, and he's playing better. He plays better left tackle than Worst can play left tackle. Then you've sorted. Now here's the question: if he plays left tackle worse than Worst plays left tackle, but he plays right tackle better than he plays left tackle. God, I'm making myself this sound way more confusing than it needs to be. Then that's the kind of setup you're going to end up with. You don't really want to have a guy who's been playing musical chairs because that means he's never really established himself in one position. So someone who's been playing musical chairs and on the line, I personally wouldn't want to have that kind of guy unless he's been elite in every single one of those roles. But yeah, me personally, I would trade back if the choice is Anton Harrison. I think you can go get him with the 25th or the 24th pick. You drop back 5 spots potentially, and I think he'll still be there, and I think you'll be able to draft him, and you'll probably get yourself some draft capital. Maybe you get some 4th, maybe yourself a late 3rd, and you can use that guy again. You can go get another guy, or you can comp one of those 3rd round picks and a 5th round pick to get yourself back into this, maybe get back into the late 2nd or early take one of those 6th round picks or 7th round picks, comp that, and you're going higher into the 3rd round. I think the Buccaneers have to be smart with this draft, right? The first 3 picks have to be slam dunks, and in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, in no specific order: offensive tackle, safety, and I would say either edge rusher or a D lineman. It's got to be one of those, all right? And then I'm going D lineman or edge rusher. Maybe go corner, or a safety that can play who can play nickel. A safety that can play nickel or a corner that can play nickel. One of those two in the 5ths. And then when it comes to the 6th round picks, I'm happy to go with the wide receivers and the running backs. And then or with a 6th round pick, look at a quarterback, and then potentially look at a guard. That's when I'm looking at guards and centers. Same with the 7th round pick. My final pick, I want to bring in a kicker. That's just me personally. Jake Moody seems to be the guy for me. Would he still be there? It's in the 7th. I don't know. If he's not, then you've kind of already got a guy. The Buccaneers did get rid of Ryan Suckup, and we will miss him. So salute to you, Ryan Suckup. You're a dude. Unfortunately, your contract was a lot for a kicker, especially a kicker who can't kick from range. But I'll tell you what, it was nice not to have that kicking problem plague us. When we're looking from like 2015 to 2000, and I'd say 2015 to 2019, when the Buccaneers didn't know who they wanted to kick, and Mike Sucker might have been there then as well, but I'll go with that, to 19. And it was revolving people. We just never really had a kicker, and it was always, Matt Gay would be missing them, then he'd be getting them right, then he'd be missing them, and then we had Aguayo, who was famously poor, and then we tried out Borgalis. He didn't turn out well when he was kicking really well in camp and then struggled in the games. Not sure what he's doing these days. So maybe the Buccaneers go and find him. You can also pick up an undrafted free agent guy. Christopher Cole says this draft is loaded with DB talent. It is, and the Buccaneers do need to go and get a safety. There's no two ways about it. When you've only got one safety on your roster, you do need to go and get a safety. I quite like. I think it's Sidney Brown from. I can't remember if he's Syracuse or Illinois. I think it's Illinois. I'll go with Illinois. Sidney Brown. I like the look of him. I wouldn't be too displeased with. I think it's Jamie Robinson from Florida State. I think that's just because I'm a Florida State fan, but you could get him in the third. Where you got to go, you've got to find yourself some DBs. The Buccaneers need a nickel, and right now the starting nickel was originally SMB. SMB's now gone. I know we used Antoine Winfield in that for a while, and I think he was a really solid nickel. But then who's going to be a free safety? Because right now the Buccaneers have no safeties, which means the Buccaneers need to have at least three more safeties. Three more safeties that have got to be signed to this team. So let's look at the positions, what we need to go and get. We get ourselves an OT. We're sorted. I'd say the line is pretty much sorted. They probably need a depth piece, maybe. All right, and they might draft an undrafted free agent. They might go after an undrafted free agent, or they might go after a veteran that's vet minimum kind of guy who's got something to prove. Okay. Then we go and look at the quarterback position, right? So we have Baker Mayfield on the roster right now, and we have Kyle Trask on the roster. These two are going to battle it out, and the language that's being used by himself in Baker, the language that's been used by Coach Bowles, is that those two are going to battle it out. So I don't think they're going to go crazy and draft somebody. Unless someone just foul that they're like, oh my God, we have to take this guy, because they're fielding conversations with other quarterbacks. I believe Hendon Hooker and I think Will Levis from Kentucky. They're fielded conversations with these guys and had meetings with them. So they're looking at guys who potentially could fall that they would want to snag. I mean, someone like that falls, then maybe you do go after it because you're like, we've got a bargain quarterback that probably shouldn't have been there. Just like Mahomes fell in his draft to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he went 10th overall in the end, but he's still foul, and look where he is now. So I don't think anyone expected him to have the career that he's had so far straight off the bat. But, such is life. Do the Buccaneers go after a tight end? I think they've only got two on. I think they might have three on the roster. They've definitely got two. But I do think they should go after another. They should go after another. Where they go in the draft, which I believe is, as per source from Johnny Dean, said there are supposedly about 14 starting level, and I'm not sure where he got that information from. I don't know if it was Ian Rappaport or somebody. It was somebody like that, but not that. That there are 14 starting level tight ends in this draft. So the Buccaneers probably want to go and get one of those for sure. I mean, it's always nice to have a guy who can start or can work their way into the starting lineup. So as we're going through this team, I think the Buccaneers will sign an undrafted free agent quarterback, because they're gonna carry 4 quarterbacks into camp. That always happens. No one carries not just 3. They'll carry 4. All teams do. Sometimes even more than that. So the Buccaneers I believe they will draft somebody. If they don't draft somebody, they will bring in a vet minimum free agent, and I think they bring in an undrafted cat. One of those will end up on the practice squad, and one of those will be bye-bye. And then they'll have 2 on active. I think they'll keep 2 on active roster. They could go to 3 on active roster and then keep the last guy on the practice squad, or get rid of him and then see who looked good from other teams and see if they can snipe somebody out and put them on their practice squad. Wide receiver position. Well, let's look at what we got. We got Mike Evans, I keep seeing people talking about potential, like other teams talking about trying to trade for Mike Evans. I saw one with the Dallas Cowboys. I've seen one with the Baltimore Ravens. I've seen a couple. I hope to good God we do not trade Mike Evans. I just don't know how you. I don't know how you do business like that, because that guy's done nothing but try and help this team be better. You know, we're constantly restructuring his contract. His language is team first. He isn't a diva. I don't think you can find wide receivers at that caliber of play level who are that humble. There aren't many. Most of them have ego. Most of them have really big egos. We're seeing it across the league now, right? Every time a wide receiver doesn't like their situation, they make a load of posts, delete all their teams, everything to do with their team on their Twitter or on their Instagram or whatever they use, whatever social media platform they use, and other social media platforms are available. But they use those and they scrub them of all their current teams stuff. So it's a bad look, and it's just got to a point where I look at some of these wide receivers and it's like you don't know where's your adversity, where's your grind, where's your backbone. Mike Evans has had nobody quarterbacks for a long, long, long time. We were hoping that the connection between him and between Mike Evans and James Winston would connect and they'd become an elite duo, but it never happened. He's had Ryan Fitzpatrick and then Ryan Fitztragic throw to him. So when I look at this Buccaneer ball club and what Mike Evans has achieved with people like Mike Glennon, he wasn't that Josh Freeman guy. Trying to remember the other Josh McCown, or Josh McClown as people used to call him. Mike Glennon, and then eventually he kind of got himself Tom Brady. But the people who are anti Mike Evans, they seem to think that Mike Evans was with Tom Brady all his career. No. Only 3 years, guys. Only 3 years. All right. Mike has been elite for since 2015, since 2014. So that tells you. And then you have people like Odell Beckham, who's going to be all selective about where he's going to go, and just think, you know what? I don't know if I want a guy like that on my team. I mean, I know teams can't go begging. Don't want to go begging for talent, but they want the best available player. But this is a guy coming off an ACL injury that was beat up, and he still hasn't got to a form where he's got himself 1,000 yards on a regular basis yet. I will not deny he's an extremely talented wide receiver, but his production level's been poor, and you can't just blame that on Baker Mayfield. You can't just blame that on everything under the sun. It's on him too. I just don't get the hype personally. He's coming off a big injury. Hopefully for him, he gets that sorted and he comes back stronger. Good for him. But I just don't see it. Then we have Chris Godwin, who's he's that kind of guy that we have who can play outside. He can play inside. He's got a very good route tree. He's kind of that guy you're going to go to screens, in breaking routes. He can do it. He can do everything. And he is I think he could be a viable number 1 wide receiver in some teams. But we're blessed to have him in our squad. And then it goes to Russell Gage, who is a predominantly slot guy who can play outside. That 1-2-3 combo is really nice. And not many teams have that. If you really look around, not many teams have that combo. And then hopefully, I'm hoping Dave Canales looks at the tight end position and we go 11 personnel with the 1 tight end. We maybe move that tight end around on motion, or we motion to trips or tight end trips and things like that. That's what I'm looking for, to bring our tight end into fruition and allow him to have his moment, because he showed so much promise last year. It just kind of fell by the wayside, and I think there's just so much more to see from him. So we got him as well. So I'm not too worried about the wide receiver group going forward. I do believe we need a tight end. I wouldn't be disheartened with a veteran, but to be honest, the veterans that are available aren't going to show. They're not leaders or anything like that, so you don't need one. So maybe you go draft one of these guys that could be a future. So maybe you go draft one of these guys who will be a future starter or who could start, and then you can start playing with your two tight end sets. So then we start dipping into what else the Buccaneers have on this team, and that's pretty much the offense, pretty much covered. What do you got? I haven't seen much in the comments yet about what do you guys think of Baker Mayfield? Do you think he's gonna is he gonna? This is like a 1 year kind of prove it deal, right? It's not a lot of money. I always like seeing people get upset with the amount of money people are being spent on players, and they act like it's their own personal wealth. It always makes me smile. But he's got a $4 million contract that can be turned into an $8.5 million contract, based on the fact that he meets incentives and what have you. And hopefully he will. Hopefully he gets us to the playoffs and we can make some noise in the playoffs. The thing I like about the guy is he has a lot of moxie. Baker Mayfield has a heck of a lot of moxie, and I read something today that BA says he likes the addition of Baker Mayfield, and I think Baker Mayfield is a very BA type quarterback, a bit cocky, big arm, big balls, kind of like the epitome of but then you say that like Jameis Winston, and a lot of people refer to Baker Mayfield as the white Jameis Winston. So we'll see. Hopefully, that's not what we get. What kind of year will he have with us? I remember a friend of the show, and Johnny Dean, who also does. Yeah, sorry, I've just absolutely. Baker is a boom or bust player. Can he bring the consistency? I mean, can he string a consistent year together? Now, the difference between the Buccaneers offense and the Browns offense, because that's the team, that's kind of where we're looking at, right? Those teams aren't, when that team was at its full potential or like with all its pieces, it had a good tight end. It had two really good wide receivers. It had two really, really good running backs. And the Buccaneers don't have the running backs, but I believe they have. I believe Mike Evans is better than Odell Beckham. The production already proves it. He can stay healthy for starters. He's available. That's a big thing. And I believe the skill set between I'm trying to remember who the other guy was. It was another LSU guy who went to the Saints. But I don't believe he's better than Chris Godwin. I just don't. And then I believe what we have in Russell Gage is better than anything they had in the slot. Now, is David Njoku better than our tight end right now? Probably, but I don't believe he can block like David Njoku, like our guy. David Njoku was a pure passing, receiving tight end. I didn't see much from him. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't watch a lot of Browns, so I could be wrong. But yeah. Will Baker Mayfield have a good season? I think the hope here is that he ends up having a Geno-esque season, and then the Buccaneers technically could have found their quarterback. And when you get a guy who's just proven it on a 1 year prove it, they're not going to be a big expenditure as say buying an Aaron Rodgers or buying a Derek Carr per se, yeah, because they've only had 1 year they've only proved it in 1 year. The big question is then, can they string consistent years together? And that's the thing that we're not sure about. And this could be the conversation that we have this time next year, or maybe not this time next year, but you get the picture. Just before free agency, we're talking, do the Buccaneers, let's say for the sake of argument, Baker goes 25 touchdowns for 11 picks, 4,500 yards, 200 yards on the ground, and 2 to 3 touchdowns on the ground too. That's a good season. It just is. That's the kind of the expectation you'd have for like an average, above average quarterback for your team, and then you saddle that with a good running game, and a good and a top 10 defense. You're a playoff team, and that's how the Buccaneers got to approach this. If they do that, they can re-sign him, but his numbers aren't astronomical that he can command so much money. And then you got to look at another thing. What if he goes the other way and he's poor? What if he's poor? That means he's lost the job to Kyle Trask, and we get to see what we got in Trask. And the question is, well, with Kyle Trask, what do you do with Kyle Trask? Well, his contract's not up, so that's a great thing. I mean, the real scenario here is me as a Bucs fan, I want Kyle Trask to win this job, because the future of him winning this job is bigger. He's younger than Baker Mayfield. Probably doesn't have his arm. You have another year with him where he doesn't cost us very much, which in a year where you've got to re-sign Antoine Winfield Jr., and Tristan Wirth, and potentially Devin White, and re-sign Levante David, it's a big year, and that's something the Buccaneer fans have got to face reality of. That is a big year for Buccaneers fans, for Buccaneers free agency. So having Baker Mayfield have a great season, and then he wants to have a commanded salary of $35 million a year for a 3-year deal or something like that, a 4-year deal, you're gonna have to be really smart with the cap again to kick that can down the road and keep him with the team. And that could be a problem. Whereas if Kyle Trask wins, it's win-win, because you got him for another year. If worse comes to worse, you can franchise tag him. So that's just 1 year. But you've already passed the year where you've got to re-sign everybody. So there's not going to be as many re-signings. Because we haven't seen, I think the year after that would be, JTS. I'm still not holding my breath on that one. So let's look at the defense, right? So what have we got in this defense? We've got this Greg Gaines guy. I do believe that they're going to line him up as a defensive end, and they'll probably kick him inside if we're doing 4 down linemen. Vita Vea, Logan Hall, and Patrick O'Connor. That's kind of your line at the moment, right? So if you have a 4-man line, it's those two. It's going to go Gaines, O'Connor, Vea, Hall. I do believe that the Buccaneers will potentially. No, I do believe that they will. I think they will re-sign William Goulston, because why not? I was cap dependent. He's not being courted by a lot of teams. He lives in Tampa. By all accounts, that's what I believe. I don't know if that's 100% true, but by all accounts, that's where he lives. So ideally, he doesn't want to just jump on a plane and go and play somewhere else. So the Buccaneers could bring him back for a veteran minimum. He didn't earn a heck of a lot last year, so I don't believe that. I believe that they can get him just as cheap or cheaper, and bring him back on this team. And then you're kind of set, because I'm not completely impressed by Logan Hall yet. I've not seen anything. I've not been wowed by him yet. In fact, I believe his get-offs comes across as quite slow to me. So that's why I think. I mean, the Buccaneers coaching staff have probably seen him 10 times, 100 times. Yeah. So they probably have a better gauge of how well he plays. I'm just going with my eye test. I've not seen anything that I've would turn around and go, wow, that guy's amazing. Or wow, that guy's going to be a stud in the future. You saw that with Antoine Winfield. You saw it straight away. You see that with Devin White. There's potential there to be Devin White isn't a bad linebacker. He just might want too much money. Right? If he turn around and say, well, I want to be paid $10 million a year, the Buccaneers might go, done. And then he turns around and says, I want $14 million a year, and the Buccaneers might go, we're done. That's it. No business here. So we have that defensive the down lineman. Now we have his dudeness, the dude. How are you, sir?
Greetings and saturations. What's going on there, buddy?
Pretty good, man. I'm just breaking down this roster of what we could need and who will be like the day one starters. What do the Buccaneers really need? Safeties.
Well, here's the thing, and I hate to interrupt you,
No,
but
sorry.
I happened to peek in and notice that JT Olson isn't here, so I was gonna wait for him to come on air, but I'll go ahead and do it now. So can I do a real quick promo, like 20 seconds, and then I'll let you go about your business.
Of course.
All right. Well, in that case, we have breaking news from BucsReport.com that has nothing to do with the actual team. But ready? Breaking news from BucsReport.com. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, BucsReport.com, Sports Talk Florida, the aftermath. Across the Bucking Pond, RBLR. It's about Bucking Time with AJ Turnip. We would like to proudly announce that BucsReport.com and Icewater Olson, also known as JT Olson, have come and agreed to terms on a 1-year deal that will keep JT Olson and all of his written and digital content at Bucs Report for the upcoming 2023 season and hopefully beyond. This is an official press release from BucsReport.com and the dude who's sitting on the back porch watching the XFL right now being fat.
I love it. You signed the dude. You got it.
So, real quick before I jump off here, because you do got a guest coming on, Cody Haynes, the Trade Up podcast. He's going to be coming on. Hey, everybody, there's going to be new meat on screen with Cody Haynes. Let's give him the Bucs Report. Welcome, guys. That means comment section. Christopher Cole, KJH for life. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, look, JT was tuned in earlier in the show. Thanks, JT. Slick, as always, man, doing a great job. Shout out to AJ Turnip, man. We send love and respect, bro. Hurry on back now. JT, you're responding in the comment section, but yet I don't see you on screen. Naughty. I just announced you. Slick.
We could go for a younger, cheaper writer in the draft, but we like the guy that we got. We just like the guy that we got.
Are you talking about Baker Mayfield?
No, we're talking about Jeff. Could have got.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay, sorry. Hey,
but we like the guy we got. We don't want to waste our draft capital on that. We got the guy we need. We just need him to come on screen.
Well, JT, here's the thing. We as always we're looking at the free agent market, but when it came down to it, it was more of a his style matches up with my style, and the fact that JT's about as laid back as the dude is. So
fits the scheme.
It fits the scheme. It was a great match. We considered a couple other lesser candidates, figuring we'd get 3 or 4 of them for what we got for JT. But we decided to go with the superstar and the stud, JT Olson. That said, we also have an agreement with Old Salty Buck. You know him as Jeremy Morrow, another writer. He'll be on throughout the season. And hopefully we have some more announcements about confirming live streams, podcasters, and all that. That said, hey, we're about a month away from the draft or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a couple of more days, we're going to be hitting April, and when we hit April, you know what that means. It's weeks before the draft. So,
yeah, absolutely. Make sure you go to BucsReport.com and check out all the mock drafts, including JT's, even though he won't come on screen and talk about it because he's cool like that. We just put a new one up, the Bucs Report 7-round mock, but we've got ones from Carter Brantley. We've got ones from JT Olson, and of course, yours truly. Slick, thank you for the time. Thank you for the vine. We appreciate and love everything you're doing. Shout out to all of our UK people over there.
Oh yeah.
To all you Glazers out hashtaggers, go away. I mean, seriously. And Slick, again, thank you. I'm going to jump off here. You do got your guest coming on soon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know a Buccaneers fan from another country, Slick is that guy.
I am that guy. Okay, guys. So just finishing off, great to have JT Olson back on the writing staff. I'm I'm pleased as hell for having him back. He's an absolute dude. He's a stud. He knows it. He's on the Creamsicle Chronicles podcast. He's an absolute dude. But let's keep talking about this Buccaneer football team, right? So the defensive line, I think they'll go get somebody. And I believe they will bring back Will Golston. They probably need to bring in another DT. I'm hoping that they do bring back Will Golston and they go and get a DT in the draft, because we do need to freshen up that position again. Because like I said, I'm not sold on Logan Hall yet. I'm just not. Let's look at this linebacking core. So let's go with the middle linebackers. This is the biggest conundrum because you look at these two guys. We got two studs, right? Straight up, two studs. We spoke briefly about what can happen next year. Both those guys are up for contracts. Now, Levante David, for me, took what I thought was a very modest salary, and it kind of almost set the market because guess what? Bobby Wagner went back to his team for almost the same price. So it just goes to show where we're at with that. I know that Levante David has said that he's only really interested in signing 1-year deals, and there was a talk that he wasn't originally interested in to go into the Bills, but he said his mind might have got changed had Von Miller given him a call. Did I break the tampering though? No, I don't know. But he's glad to be back, and we're glad that he's back, and he's in his 12th year as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. My favorite dude on defense, to be brutally honest with you. I love that guy. Technical, consistent, he just oozes Buccaneers. That guy bleeds red and pewter, absolutely. And I can't wait to see him if we get into those creamsicles again. I'd love to see him in a creamsicle because I need to get me either get me an Antoine Winfield creamsicle or I need to go get me a Vontae David creamsicle. That's where I'm at. That's where my passion is right now. Those two, if they're going to do jerseys, those are the ones I'm looking for. So, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, get the creamsicles out. Levante David, Antoine Winfield. It's got to be done. Don't mess about. All right. That being said, both those guys are up. Now, look, the Buccaneers could re-sign Levante David for $5 million, and I think that could be the stop. They have to sign one of those guys. Now, Levante David could be the stopgap guy, and then they go draft somebody in the first round next year. Right? But let's not talk about the next year. But look, this is the question. It's shored up for this year. This year we're sorted, but I want to see better pass coverage from Devin White. It's just not there. And he had some really bad games last year. Show us the consistency. Show us that you're ready to take that whole leap because you're a heck of a player. You have a cockiness to you that I absolutely adore. Obviously, you're very different to our boy Levante David, who's silent but violent. And, we want the best for you. So we want you. I want him to stay a Buccaneer. But we've got to be able to afford it. You know what I'm saying? So then we go to the edge rushers. One's pretty much set. Shaq Barrett, I'm hoping he's going to be ready for camp, or he's going to be ready for the last preseason game maybe. We can bring him in ready for the first game of the season. I don't know how that's going to look, but I'm hoping he's back. I personally felt Anthony Nelson had a great campaign last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he could push for a starting spot, providing they don't draft anybody. But that being said, I do honestly think if we draft, it's going to go OT, and then it's going to be a D line. It's going to be safety. It's going to be safety, or D lineman, or edge. It's going to be one of those three. And then the next pick is going to be whatever's left of those two. And then the next pick is going to be whatever's left of that one. That's honestly how I think this will go. In my opinion, how this goes. It's how I would draft. I'm no expert though, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I've not seen enough from JTS. That guy is just pure speed. He's like a bullet. He struggles with changing direction. He seems to have only one move in his arsenal, which is really surprising because maybe he had other moves in college, because I didn't watch a lot of him in college, if I'm honest. Maybe he had other moves in college and they work against other college O-linemen. He don't use any of them in his current team. Okay, so we have our first guest. It's Cody Haynes, a Bucs fanatic from the Trade Up podcast. Welcome to the show, brother. Oh, it's Jeff Olson. I'm bringing Jeff Olson in. How are you, brother? You good? You're on mute, mate. There'll be some technical deal. You good?
Am I in?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you've been retained.
Apparently, I'm doing an all right job. So I'm gonna stick
There you
around for a
go.
bit.
You do more than an all right job. You do a fantastic job, man. And we always appreciate the stuff that you do. And I'm glad. I'm definitely glad to have you back, and I'm glad to have you on the show, of course, as always. As I've been going around this, and a question I wouldn't mind asking you: what would you do if Levante David has his normal consistent season, but then Devin White doesn't take that jump? What would you do in that situation going into next year?
Man, that's a really hard situation because even if Levante continues to play great, he's not the long-term answer at this point in his
Mm-hmm.
career. And Devin White's only 25, 26 years old, and even not making the jump, he's still playing at a high level. He does things, really well. Some things, he's a big-time playmaker, sideline to sideline speed. It's just, he has to be consistent, and I think we saw glimpses of that late in last year. But just consistently playing disciplined, playing sound in coverage, it's a mental aspect for him because all the physical tools are there, and it's if you don't see it by now, by this year, I don't know if he'll ever get there. But
No,
I
because
still want him on the team.
he's got an elite person to learn from next to him, and they
Oh
obviously
yeah,
have good coaching staff because Levante David has done nothing but rant and rave about how good this coaching staff is. That this is the best coaching staff that he's ever been on in his career. So that speaks volumes. And he had the great Hardy Nickerson coaching for a while.
well, you got to think Larry Foote. I mean, he played linebacker in the league for what, 12 years, 15
Mm-hmm.
years, and he was never that big time athlete that a guy like Devin White is. He had to think the game at a higher level. He had to play with toughness and grit, and he's part of those really good Steelers defenses, and he's everything you'd want in the coach in terms of experience and personality, and who else could you handpick to want to learn from besides a coach like Foot and a teammate like Levante David?
I mean, and I think that's what it. I think the Buccaneers, if it comes down to this, they'd just draft somebody. They'd just draft somebody next year. If you draft someone first round, they should start anyway. So I don't think there's a big deal, and I think you can pick up good middle linebackers in the early seconds too. As well.
Yeah, and I wish they could address it more this year. Grab a guy like Noah Sewell or a guy like Jack Campbell in the second or third round.
Yeah.
But with so many immediate needs that have to be filled in this draft, it's too much of a luxury pick to plan for the future right now.
Mm-hmm. And who do you have the Buccaneers going number one on at the moment, in your opinion?
In my dream world, it would be Broderick Jones.
Okay, so you take him if he's there. You're taking him, no questions asked.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. So if he's not there, and the next available guy is Anton Harrison, would you trade back?
It would depend on the board. If Anton Harrison and Darnell Wright from Tennessee are both there, then I would definitely trade back and risk losing one of those two guys because we actually broke down offensive tackles on our podcast on Friday.
Okay.
My co-host Garrett Ballard, he's a big Anton Harrison fan. He is the preferred option there.
And would you agree with
I
that
lean a
notion
little
as well?
bit. What's that?
Would you agree with the notion that he's the preferred option as well?
I actually lean a little bit more Darnell Wright.
Okay.
He's almost equally athletic. He's 20 pounds bigger, stronger. I think he's a little bit further along with his technique, although both need to refine it.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I'd be happy with either of those two guys stepping in and starting next year. And
but you could trade back
with the growing pains.
And get yourself a late third or a fourth. You'd be quite happy with that.
Oh, absolutely, because a late third or a fourth round pick, that's potentially a starting safety. That's your next Jordan Whitehead right there. Whether that's a J.L. Skinner from Boise State or, you mentioned Sidney Brown from Illinois. He's someone I like a lot. And, if you can get that guy in late third round, that's a role that you need to fill in this draft.
Absolutely. I mean, the Buccaneers only have one safety on the roster right now, I believe. So I do believe someone gets signed. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if Logan Ryan's still available. I thought he was very serviceable last year for us. Whether he wants to come back or not is a completely different matter, though.
I think he is still available as a free agent.
And I'll say, once you're a free agent and you've not been picked up in the first wave, the second wave, or the third wave, your price is starting to like drip down, because you can't really ask for a lot of money, can you? You're in no position. You have no bargaining chip. You can't say I'm elite and everyone wants me, because no one wants you because you're still there.
Sure, especially a guy like Logan Ryan at this point in his career. I mean, he's in his early mid 30s. He's been there. He's done that. And
Mm-hmm.
the big question now is, does he want to join up with a contender and try and get another championship, or is he as happy in Tampa as he appears to be, as he's vocally praising Jamel Dean for getting his big payday, Sean Murphy Bunting when he got paid. He's been very outspoken about his teammates in Tampa Bay and being very engaged and very happy for them. So it seems like he really gelled and vibed well with that group of secondary players. So if he wants to come back and return to that same group where he obviously seemed pretty happy, that's the decision he has to make.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't pay a heck of a lot for him. I think it was less than 2.5. I'm pretty sure the Buccaneers could get him probably less than that right now, because he is, like you said, entering the end towards the end of his career now. So the Buccaneers could definitely do with that help. And I thought he played pretty well. Out of the three, he's not as splashy, but he's I think he had a few mess ups, but he tended to fix himself pretty quick. And when we had a lot of safeties down, I was more and more impressed with him the more he started. When he first started, I was like, "Ooh, this is ugly." And then as time went on, he started making less mistakes and he started making bigger plays. Stopping people on fourth down, getting the ball off, ripping the ball out here and there, and just felt like he really played much better as time went by.
Yeah, I think he was the one who forced that fumble down by the goal line. I think it was against the
Yeah.
Packers, and you heard his teammates rave about his communication, which you expect from a guy who's been in the league like he has, and that's something this Bucs secondary has lacked for a long time, was that older veteran presence. It's been Davis and Dean and Winfield, all these young guys growing up together. They never really
I
had
mean,
that
you
adult in
look
the
at that.
room.
If you look at that, you're absolutely right. That DB room had what the oldest person was probably Jordan Whitehead, really, and he's not particularly young. He's only was in the league for 4 years before he left last year. So these are all guys that are under 26.
Yeah, and learning in that Super Bowl year, that is their experience. They all experienced it together. And a guy like Logan Ryan, he's already had a Super Bowl. He's been there. He's been in the league twice as long, so he's got all that experience coming from different backgrounds, and just that many more years on them.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the other side of it. We get Greg Gaines. What do you think of him? Where do you think they're going to put him? Because he's listed as a nose tackle. I do believe that they'll probably try and shove him to end, though.
I absolutely love the signing of Brent Gaines. I think he's a really underrated player, really good run stuffer, and he was someone who, in years past, I didn't really account for as a part of that Rams defense. But every time we played him, he's just a thorn in the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he, right now, you can pencil him in as the starting three tech, where you
Okay.
lose a little bit of pass rush there from what you ideally want. But, a defensive line of Vita Vea and Greg Gaines, that's a stout defensive line against the run. And the Bucs kind of lacked that a little bit last year. They kind of need to get back to that identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the deal. I mean, I'm personally not sold on Logan Hall. To be honest, I've not seen much from him to make me that excited. So yeah, I'm hoping that they bring back Will Golston. I believe that he can be signed cheap. He lives in Tampa. He's lived in Tampa for as long as he's been here. So what? Levante David is going into his 12th year. This cat's going into his 11th, or at least 10th. So I do hope that we get him back. I do believe it will be a veteran minimum contract, probably done either just before the draft or just after the draft, depending on where the Buccaneers go with that.
Yeah, I think that's a very logical signing, just with the price tag, the experience, what he brings to the team. And I think they could add 2 free agents. Grab a guy like Chris Wormley who can play a little bit of that 5 tech and a little bit of that 3 tech, and adds just a
Absolutely.
little bit more depth to that defensive line. And that's a guy who's been, he's played with Pittsburgh, he's played with Baltimore, 2 of the grittiest, most respected franchises in the league. You bring
Yeah,
a guy like that in, and draft a rookie as an upside pass rusher, and you really round out that defensive line pretty nicely.
I think so. And one of the ones I'm excited to get see is more of a feel for Anthony Nelson, who I felt had a really great campaign last year with us. I kind of get this young Shaq Barrett vibe from him, more the sense of like he's just been that backup guy for so long, a rotational piece. And then this year, it almost injuries happened, and he was probably the best pass rusher on the team.
He was definitely Johnny on the spot for a lot of those sacks. And when they needed a play, he was the one who was cleaning it up. He finished sacks, he forced the fumbles, and the Bucs have missed that. Even when Shaq Barrett, he's a guy who would sometimes force pressure, move him off the spot, but couldn't clean it up. Same
Mm-hmm.
with Joe Tryon Shoenka. So, those faster guys, it's nice to kind of push that pocket, force that quarterback to move, where a big, strong pass rusher like Nelson can really get his hands on him and take him to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. We're also bringing back Pat O'Connor's back. He's a defensive tackle. He probably can play a few different spots on that defensive line. Aaron Stinney's back, which is always good because we saw some great stuff from him in the Super Bowl where he had to man up and play guard for us and played I thought a heck of a good job in it. He was expected to be the starting guard this year until he went down. So be interesting to see what the Buccaneers do with him at guard.
Between Stinney and Leverett and Hainsey and Gadecki, just put them all out there and just pick the best 2. I don't care who they are. I don't care where they were drafted. Just got to get the best 2 guys surrounding Jensen, and whoever's going to be that left guard in particular, supporting what's most likely going to be a rookie. You just got to get the best players in that spot.
And I know you're not the hugest fan of maybe moving Tristan Wirfs to the other side.
Ideally, no. I mean, he's so great at what he does, I wouldn't want to mess with it. Even though I think he would be fine at left tackle as well. I think he'd be a Pro Bowl level player there. But it's just, if it's not broke, I don't want to try and fix it.
And the only problem with him being a Pro Bowl left tackle is that price tag is going to go up even more.
That's okay. Write him a blank check. He deserves it.
Oh no! I'm just saying when you're looking with cap and things like that, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you could get one free agent signing right now, who's an under the radar guy that you go, you know what, this could be a nice little piece to bring in, compliment us.
So the guy I really want them to sign right now is Eric Fisher, the left tackle. He was on the Chiefs when they won the Super Bowl, not last year, but the one before the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
He was a former first overall pick from Central Michigan University, Fire Up Chips.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in the league for over a decade. He's been a Pro Bowler, and he's kind of at a point in his career where he was backing up in Miami last year. He's kind of a fringe starter with, just the way his body is broken down a little bit. But, even if the Bucs draft a rookie to play that left tackle spot, they're losing their backup left tackle as well. I mean, Josh Wells, he's going to be out with injury this year. He's a free agent. So if you can get a fringe starter like Fisher at this point in his career, and you can use him as a backup, or you can have him as the starter to begin the year as you ease that rookie in, I think that's kind of the ideal signing for this offensive line right
now. That makes sense to me. I mean, it's the one position in football that's, I'd say when it comes to the offense is you got your wide receivers, you got your wide receivers and you got your quarterback, and then it goes to left tackle, which is then seen as like the most important position on the line. And if you can get someone who I like what you said by allowing someone to just do the job until either be the backup for the guy if the guy's good enough to start straight away, or just to allow that guy to transition into that to being an NFL player. Because being an NFL player day one, when you've had just a camp and you're ready to rock and roll and you're going against pass rushers that were way better than the guys you may have faced in college, is a is no simple task, to just put it lightly. So signing like Eric Fisher would be really, really smart, I believe. Yeah, I agree with that.
And then added bonus, we get half the line from Central Michigan. So that is a huge signing for me as a proud alumni.
Very true. So we go with Baker Mayfield. All the language that's been spoken by the organization and by Baker himself and by other people that have been in the media, it is kind of seen as a two-man race. I know maybe that's just because there's only two men in the race at this point, but it does seem by the Buccaneers using that language, they're not really interested in going after another guy. It would be more of a camp body or a complement piece rather than going after anybody who's going to be part of this battle. They've kind of narrowed it down to these two guys, haven't they, really, Jeff?
Well, yeah, I think, they invested so much into Kyle Trask using a second round pick on him. They want him to win the job. I mean, you pick a guy like that's the way you want to be the future. Especially, the point you made earlier where he's more contract controlled, he's cheaper, that's, you win Super Bowls when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract.
I mean, you've got a better chance because you are able to buy more pieces around him and surround him with more talent. As soon as he starts making that 40 million cheddar, then that's one superstar player that you can't bring back. So, or two, depending on how savvy you are with your money, that's a running back and a wide receiver potentially, or it could be a left tackle and a high end running back. So it really does affect your team when you talk about these kind of players. It also gives the Buccaneers breathing room just for a year. In my opinion, you want this guy. A, he's in-house. B, he's going to be cheaper because you got him for one more year. If worse comes to worse, the Buccaneers could tag him if they absolutely had to, just to see another year on the clock. But they get past that year, and we've got a really nasty year next year when it comes to signing people because there's some big names. We talk about Levante David, who probably won't command that same $7 million, which I thought was a modest salary, but then we see the contract being signed by Bobby Wagner, and it's around about the same. So it's not too different. And then you also have Christian Wirfs, Antoine Winfield. These are premier starting players for this Buccaneers football team, as well as Devin White. So not having to re-sign a quarterback in that is probably beneficial in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no matter how this year goes, the Bucs want a cost-controlled quarterback next year, whether that's Trask, whether that's bringing back Mayfield on another cheap deal, or whether that's drafting a rookie next year. Maybe you're in a position to get a guy like Drake May from North Carolina or Caleb Williams from USC. Someone who can be the future of this franchise and you can feel good about in the next 3-4 years, leading you to a Super Bowl, but also isn't commanding that big time salary and allows you to keep guys like Wirfs and White and Winfield.
Absolutely, and then that's the main thing. You've got to have the pieces around them because you don't want them going to other teams. You don't particularly want. I believe the Buccaneers. I do. We've spoken earlier about Devin White having to have, I wouldn't say an amazing year, but a consistent year. A consistent year where I would like to see the pass coverage go up on the next level. Because I'm not seeing it. In fact, I think in my opinion, I feel like it's regressed a little bit. The run defense,
there are certainly times.
Absolutely. So I look at it from that perspective, and I'm like, we'll be all right for money, but it's just like you don't want to have to sign a quarterback in that time period if you don't have to. And then if you have like a Baker Mayfield goes off and he wins 10 to 11 games, and we win because of him, not in spite of him. We lose games not because of him. We don't lose games because of him. He doesn't lose us many games, and he's winning us more games. And he ends up with a 4,500 to a 27 touchdown ratio of 12 picks. You're probably going to shell out You're probably going to have to shell out the 40 million. You're looking at a contract like Daniel Jones or a Geno, if you're lucky, a Geno Smith contract.
Yeah, I think those are the comparable ones. Guys who had not been successful in their career and then finally broke out right before their payday.
I mean, they can always tag if worse comes to worse. I mean, if tagging's better than, because you want it. the thing you see with, and I see this as a trend in the NFL. We saw it with Brock Osweiler. Brock Osweiler had that campaign in 2015 when he took over from Peyton Manning, and he played incredibly well. And then someone paid, I can't remember who it was, someone paid big money. I think it probably was the Broncos. Paid big money to keep him because they thought they had their guy. And then he just turned back into what everyone was expecting him to be in the first place. And it never really came. And you ended up coughing up so much guaranteed money.
Was that when the Texans signed him, and then a few years later they had to give the Browns draft picks to take him off their books?
Yes, I think that's the case. Yeah, and it's all
that was one of the all-time worst signings, to have to give high-end draft capital to take this quarterback away. That is the nightmare.
just take our quarterback because he's just too expensive. Yeah, they threw so much money at him, and but that's what you see with teams. It's like we might see this with Geno Smith. We might see this with I can't remember his name, the Giants quarterback, Daniel Jones. That they could regress and they go back to what they were before they had this season, because you don't have it. It's not sustainable. It's not consistent. And I think that's why sometimes the tag is handy, because it just allows you to have that one more year look at them and you go, okay, that last year wasn't just everything just fell right for him. It's consistent. He's nailed on into this scheme. He gets it. He's our guy. Now, of course, we can only go by the eye test of what we see in games, because we don't attend all their practices. We don't see all those other reps that they're having. But you do end up having to look at these guys and going, okay, we overspent. And then you're in a struggle. I personally never got the Daniel Jones things. Personally, I'd rather pay more for a running back and put the quarterback, because that quarterback contract is not team friendly whatsoever, in my opinion. I feel like he broke the bank on them a little bit, to be honest. I mean, it's a contract with a 2-year. I think, what is it? Second year you're out of it, so not the end of the world, but you're going to eat something. Whereas a running back, you're probably not. Like, his contract's going to be maximum $12 million a year on average, and that's hard. That's really high. So you could overpay Saquon Barkley and still have your quarterback, and it still have more money in your pocket to go and sign other pieces. That's why I just thought it was bad business, personally. I like the Geno Smith one. I think Geno Smith seems a more sustainable quarterback, because someone put up it, Daniel Jones has played more games than thrown touchdowns last year. That's a worrying stat. That's not the best thing. And in his last 3 years, he's played more games than thrown touchdowns.
Yeah, that's not what you want for a guy who's supposed to be leading your offense.
Exactly. And that's why I look at someone like Geno, who did have that year. He did throw a lot of touchdowns. He did have a lower. I think the stats I literally just reeled off that would be great for Baker are the kind of stats that Geno pulled off. So that's what we're hoping for. But I'd much rather it be Trask at this point, just because you get another year's breathing room. And if you really aren't sold, you can always tag him. So then you've got 3 years of seeing what Kyle Trask can really do. And hopefully we see an upward trend with that guy, because there's no reason he can't be the guy. BA's talked about him, but then BA was part of the team that drafted him, so he's never going to talk trash about him. He also likes the consistent. Was it the one? He likes the addition of Baker Mayfield. He's cocky, and I'm quoting here, but at that size, you better be. So I don't know what that necessarily means, but this could be an interesting battle for us.
Yeah, and I've been told by people more connected than me that Bruce Arians is a big Baker Mayfield guy. If he were still the coach, he would have
but that doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like they're so similar in the way they play and their faults. I don't get how you can love Baker and hate Jameis, but Bruce has his guys and he goes to bat for his guys. We saw that with Leftwich. So I mean, once you're in with him, and
yeah,
Baker's in with him.
We saw he went to bat for Jameis Winston as well. I believe when Bruce Arians said he was going to come back into coaching, the Browns were one of the teams that was considering trying to get him also, because he liked the idea of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, so I'm sure he was a big time voice in Light's ear and Bull's ear in targeting Baker. And then, with the offensive coordinator that we hired, Dave Canales, running a Sean McVay offense, and his experience with the Rams last year, I think that was another factor that really brought him into the fold with the Bucs. And because of that experience, not just with the Rams, but in the NFL, and just because of his
Mm-hmm.
overall talent level, I do expect him to win that job pretty comfortably over Trask.
You're hoping, so you're hoping for Trask, but you're expecting Mayfield.
I would love to see Trask be wildly successful in the NFL. It does nothing but benefit the Bucs. I just don't think he's any
Absolutely.
good.
You don't have to have you have a year where you just worry about signing your free you have a free agency where you worry about signing your free agents, and then you can just go big on you go and find yourself some pieces in the draft. If he doesn't pan out and neither of them pan out, then you're kind of like, oh God, we're back at square one and we've got to find a quarterback, which is probably the worst situation that the Buccaneers go into. That's like the worst case situation that the Buccaneers are like, okay, now we're in a rebuild because we don't know who our next quarterback is going to be, because we don't know who's available next year, because we don't know who's available next year. And on top of that, you got to draft somebody. Now, if the Buccaneers have that middling pick, do they give up draft capital to go up in the draft and get somebody, or do they just wait and see what sits and falls? We know that the Buccaneers have been doing their due diligence with quarterbacks. I believe they've spoken to Hendon Hooker, and I believe is it Will Levi?
Will Levis.
Levis, sorry, I don't know what. I think I read the way I read it.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of the jeans, that's how you spell Levi's. But
that's exactly how I read it. But obviously, you've probably heard his name called out on air, so that's definitely what it probably is. I remember, who was it? Gadecki. Gadecki was one that a lot of people struggle with, because some people would say Geteki.
I think that's how it's pronounced.
It is, I believe. I
Gadecki.
remember seeing one of the media things where they have the phonetics for the names.
Mhm.
Anyone who has a name that people aren't too sure on, so it would be it's like La Von Te, so rather than someone going Levante. But they tend. I've noticed. I've seen a couple of like media packs where they break down their roster with people who have unusual names and a little bit more difficult to pronounce, so they have them with their phonics, which is kind of funny. So, and I remember seeing Get a Key, and I was like, okay. But I remember preseason, we were all saying, a lot of us were saying Gadecki, because that's just what rolled off the tongue. That's how it looks on paper. And then sort of Christopher Gold's come up and said Lamar Jackson needs an agent. Yeah, we're all well aware. And I know it's not Bucs news, but isn't this really foolish of him to not go and get an agent to save money? Because obviously the only reason he's doing this is because he doesn't want to pay the premium for it. But your agent's the person who goes to bat for you. The agent's the person who sets up all the meetings. The agent's the person who's talking to everybody and has links with every team. Your mom or your uncle or your sister's best friend isn't that. And yeah, you'll save money, but if they end up tagging, if he ends up having to play on that tag, he's going to lose money anyway. What he could have potentially earned if he had an agent and they found somebody who's going to pay upwards of 40 million a year. So, at the end of the day, and when it's all said and done, that's the price of doing business. Yeah, you go somewhere like Florida, does it matter? I'm not trying to speak Lamar to the Buccaneers into existence, because I don't think it'll happen. But my point being is, you go somewhere where there's no state income tax. Does it matter? You've got to pay your agent. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make much sense. But hey, let's get back to our Buccaneers.
I was gonna say, the other thing about an agent for Lamar, sometimes they tell you the things that you don't want to hear. Like, Lamar, you're not getting 5 years, 50 million guaranteed. It's a year. It's not gonna happen. You need to take this deal.
Sure.
This is what's gonna benefit you.
Absolutely, and they don't want to. They want to get the agents want to get the maximum deal as they can out of it anyway, because they get a cut of that money. So it's in their best interest to get you the best deal they physically can. But they've also live in the real world and know how much you're actually worth and how much people are really willing to spend on you. I mean, you might be able to shake out a little bit of money here, there, or add a bit more guaranteed money here, but the grand scheme of things, your friend or your person who's representing you right now can't do those things. And you have an agent, they go to the scout and combine where all the team managers, team GMs are there. You can have conversations with those coaches, those GMs, and what have you, and see how it goes. Anyway, let's get back. I believe JT's left us, so I'm going to wrap this up soon and get on with this, because it's about 4 a.m. over here in the UK, and I know we're hitting that 1 hour and a quarter mark now. So, JT, thanks for coming on. Much appreciated, brother. I would love to see the acquisition of an Eric Fisher for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers football team. And hopefully Kyle Trask is Kyle Trask and not Kyle Trash. But if Baker Mayfield comes out and rolls with the punches, I'm more than willing to call him my QB. I will defend him until he starts playing poorly. Hopefully we see Kyle Trask, though. I'm hoping that Kyle Trask wins the job just because it benefits the Buccaneers long term. But without that said, guys, it's always a pleasure, never a chore. AJ, if you're hearing this, I love you. I respect you. I miss you. Thank you for covering for me last week. And now I'm covering for you. We've always got each other's back. He's my bro host. Check him out. Check his merchandise. He's got his 5-stick merchandise, which is the original name, the Native American name for Tampa, which I think is absolutely badass. And he's always turning up in style, my guy. So I gotta give him his flowers and his work ethic, because that guy's always working out. He's always doing great videos. He's doing great content. So always check out. It's about booking time. AJ Turnip, my dude, my bro host. And guys, that's a night. Bucs on me, Bucs on 3. 1, 2, 3. Go Bucs!